I know a lot of guys out there are good guys who want to preach, they want to be faithful, and there is a group out there that maybe hasn't said much on abortion. And I think a lot of church leaders also assume that their biblical worldview applies to everything but controversial issues like abortion. And they've bought the lie that this is a political issue and we don't want to get into politics, so we're not going to touch abortion with a 10-foot pole. And that too is a problematic view, because the biblical worldview, Mike, applies to all of life, not just the parts we like. It applies to everything. And to say, oh, the biblical worldview speaks to all of reality except this little thing over here that might become politicized, well, that's an errant view. By the way, all moral issues become politicized. Slavery became politicized. Segregation became politicized. Women voting became politicized. Spousal abuse became politicized. Today, sex trafficking is politicized. But that's no excuse to fail to bring a biblical worldview to those issues.
Yeah. And I think the unintended or the tragic consequence is that the church is viewed as irrelevant, that the gospel is irrelevant, that it doesn't have anything to say about the issues that matter most.
I think you put it real well in a quote of yours that I steal often and most of the time give you credit for, but not always. When you said that when the church does not speak up on abortion, it communicates one of two things. Either abortion is unforgivable or it's permissible, because there's no other options for explaining or interpreting the church silence on this. I know a lot of guys out there are good guys who want to preach, they want to be faithful, and there is a group out there that maybe hasn't said much on abortion. It's not that they're compromised. They don't know what to do. They don't even know what a pro-life church looks like. So I want to be careful that I don't paint too generally here with a broad brush and make it sound like there's nobody out there doing good work. When you were pastoring, you did great work on this issue, and I know other friends that are doing great work on it as well. And each of these guys, though, you and the guys I'm thinking of, had to come to a point where they asked this question: do I trust the Lord to protect his ministry through me when I preach difficult truths? And that's the gut check question for all church leaders. Do we trust the Lord to build his work through us, rather than thinking it's our work and we better have the right marketing pitch?
Yeah. Well, I had the blessing of seeing it done. And I think a lot of pastors today, they've never seen it done before. I don't often like to publicly speak well of my friend Michael Moody.
No, you don't want to do that.
But he's a good friend, old friend and pastor. And I think he was the first pastor that I saw preach on abortion. And this was maybe 20 years ago. And I don't remember how he did it actually. But the fact that he was willing to engage the issue, and I saw firsthand what that looks like in a church, gave me some kind of a vision for its place in the church, and that you can address this issue and not lose on it or whatnot. You know, I think a lot of fear is, there's a lot of fear here for a lot of pastors. What am I going to lose? What is this going to cost me? And not that this is the reason to address abortion, but I've actually never had a bad experience talking about it, which that's probably a bit unique, or maybe not, but I've only had positive responses when I've spoke on abortion, whether it's preaching it, on a Sunday morning, or being invited as a guest speaker and delivering a message to a high school. The response I get every single time is, one, it's a thank you. I've never heard anything like this before. Most people haven't heard a compelling pro-life case built on science, philosophy, and an understanding of how this fits in within a biblical worldview. But I also get somebody who comes up to me and says, hey, I've never told anybody this before.
Yeah.
And then they go on to share their experience with abortion, whether it's they had one, whether it was they paid for one, whether it was they pressured somebody to get one. And the fact that I spoke on it, or the host opened up an opportunity for their people to hear about this. It gave them permission to talk about it. And a tremendous amount of healing can come simply from the fact that you don't have to live in this closet of shame. It can come out into the open and you can talk about it and not be, not just be judged and condemned, but find good answers to one of the most important issues there is in life and find a way to, just to find a way to deal with whatever your experience has been with it.
Yeah, and you're modeling exactly what we see Jesus doing in his conversation with the woman at the well. I mean, Jesus tells her the truth. You've had 5 husbands. And the one you're with now isn't your husband. And this woman gets so taken by him being a truth teller that she goes back to the village and hears her pitch for everybody to come hear Jesus. This man told me everything I ever did. Wow. He didn't paper over her problems. He was truthful about it. And it's funny what happens when we are truthful about abortion and we describe it as the shedding of innocent blood. We make the biblical case that abortion is the shedding of innocent blood. We make a case for the lives of the unborn, and then we point people to the solution for the shedding of innocent blood. My friend John Enzer has a great quote. He said, "Forgiveness for the shedding of innocent blood requires the shedding of innocent blood," meaning the shed innocent blood of our Savior, of course. So talking about abortion is a wonderful way to talk about the gospel, how Christ became a propitiation for our sin by putting forth himself as the offering for our sin, standing in our place condemned, bearing the wrath of God on our behalf. And it becomes a wonderful way when we speak truthfully on abortion to say, here's the fix, folks. We're not just giving you bad news. We're pointing you to the good news that's found in your Savior.
Yeah. Well, I've found that when I address this issue, it certainly does not turn people away from the gospel. In fact, I found often that it creates an opportunity to talk about the gospel in a meaningful way. And that's in part because they see that Christians and the Christian worldview has something to say about the most important issues in life.
That is so key. Yeah, because when we're silent on this issue, we're basically telling the culture Christianity has nothing intelligent to say on an issue that everybody in our culture admits is a big one. Whether you're pro-abortion or pro-life, everybody thinks abortion is a dominant issue in the culture, except people who want to be silent about it in the pulpit. They're the only ones who don't see it that way. And the culture scratches its head and goes, wait a minute. If Christianity is really relevant, where's the voice on this?